Hi, good morning. I'm Rebecca Craddock with Half Acre Commercial Real Estate Services, and I'm also an ambassador with East Orlando Chamber. I'm here at Auntie Anne's in Avito Mall for Testimonial Tuesday. I'm with Sarah July, Unique Travels with Sarah. So we're going to be talking to Sarah and finding out a little bit about her business and delving into her local travel a little bit more. So let's start off with how long have you been in the business?
I started about a year ago. I really have put energy into it and effort about the last 3 months. But I got all of my certifications and training through in those first 6 months that I started. And yeah, so about a year.
Okay. So what made you decide to go into the travel business?
I just really love travel in general. I have a lot of travel that I've done. For example, for my honeymoon, we did a month in Europe, and I planned the whole thing myself. And so I just really love that research aspect of finding hidden gems, but also making sure you're going to the really touristy spots at the right time, stuff like that. Doing all that in-depth research is something I really enjoy, and I feel like a lot of people don't have the time for it. And so I figured might as well find a way to start helping people get the best out of their vacation and make sure that they can get all the VIP perks that come with booking with a travel agent as well.
Okay. So when you're scheduling vacations, how long do you suggest somebody contact you before they actually want to take the vacation? Like how long would it take you to plan?
I mean, it really depends on, but I think if you're about to go on a trip, you probably know more than 2 weeks in advance. But yeah, I mean, but if you are kind of doing something spontaneous and you really want the end-to-end experience like that, then I would say, yeah, at least 2 weeks to plan a full itinerary of something.
Okay. And the trips that you plan, what's the minimum amount of time that you would suggest somebody do you plan a long weekend trip or some weeks that's supposed to go for the night, or do you have a minimum number of nights that you
No, so I can do anything from just booking the hotel. Let's say, for example, you already know what hotel you want to go stay at. You're going to do a little weekend staycation here in Orlando. I can book the hotel for you, so you get VIP perks like early check-in, late checkout, sometimes a spa credit, different things like that based on the hotel you're staying in. I get extra perks booking as a travel agent. So I can book just the hotel if you already know where you want to go. I can do just a little bit of hotel research if you're like, I know I want to go to Austria, but I don't know what hotel I want to stay in. I can do just that. Or I can do all the way to full itinerary planning, into what hotels you're staying at, helping with transportation or car rentals, and any of the activities and tours.
Okay. What's the longest vacation that you've ever booked?
So far, for a client, so far is 10 days. Yep, I'm in the midst of planning a 10-day trip to Hawaii, and the family is going as a family of 6. I'm helping them book a condo to stay in, so a 3-bedroom condo instead of staying at a hotel, so they can all stay together. And yeah, so 10 days.
Okay. So 6 people is quite a bit. Is there a maximum number of people that you will work with? Would you plan for a small group tour?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say a maximum number. I am open to working with groups, especially if you wanted to group cruises. I know I'm a gold certified for Virgin Voyages, which is a gold only cruise line, and they do what they call circles. So that's for larger groups, over 10 rooms. So I can, as long as I have the contact information, coordinate with all the people for the different rooms as well. But yeah, planning group trips is actually something I'm really enjoying because I'm finding activities that are good for grandma and grandpa that are going on the trip, as well as that are good for the children that are going on the trip. So everything that's in between, finding something that works for everybody is really fun.
Okay. So you mentioned cruise ships. So you book cruise ships plane rides, I'm imagining.
Planes or flights are, I'll help do like the research on the flights, but I actually can't formally book the flights for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about trains?
Trains I can help book. Yeah.
Okay. Um, are there any places that you recommend that people don't go, or are you capable of planning a trip globally?
Yeah, I can help plan anything globally. The really great thing about I am an agent under what's called Flora. It's my host agency, and they have a really great community. So, if, for example, somebody wanted to plan a trip to somewhere I've never been, let's say, for example, Japan, I actually know a agent that specializes in Japan and can use her resources as the community to help make sure that I'm getting the best experience for a client, even if they're going somewhere I personally never been.
So you said that you started this business, because of your love of travel. Where do you think, where's the most exotic place you've ever traveled?
I think people are always most excited when I say Morocco. That was a really unique experience. We flew into Casablanca, and then we went to Fez, Merzouga, which is like out in the Sahara Desert, Marrakesh, and Essaouira, out just on the coastline. So that was a 2-week trip that I planned, just kind of going through all of it, and I coordinated all of the like transportation, the coordination of like where we were staying, each of the DARs, stuff like that. It was just a very unique experience, very different culture from what you expect in the Mediterranean.
So I've been to Morocco, and when we were in Casablanca, we were told if you speak any language other than English, did you ever feel, intimidated or threatened or unsafe while you were over there? What advice would you give to travelers out there in a situation where they're like, why do I feel so?
I actually felt safer in Morocco than I felt walking the streets of Rome at night. So the thing about Morocco is their entire economy is really built on tourism, and so they have laws in place to really keep tourists safe. And so Morocco is especially a unique spot. Never once felt unsafe. I think in the Medina, wandering around, there's like areas of the Medina that get closed off at night, so it can be a little easy to get lost. But I can just say getting a data plan for your phone to make sure you have access to like Google Maps. That was something that we found really helpful while we were there. Stuff like that. But as far as like the language barrier, I never felt unsafe in talking to people. But I think a big thing that's helpful is learning a few key phrases of anywhere you go. Just hello and thank you and can I get the check? Where's the bathroom? A few key phrases like that, and learning to say them in the language of where you're going is definitely helpful. For Morocco, as an example, they speak Arabic and French, so Arabic is definitely difficult to learn a few key phrases. I tried, but if you speak French, and French is a little bit easier to learn those key phrases, then people will realize you're putting in the effort and are much nicer. Yeah.
And you had mentioned, getting the card for your phone. Do you, on any of the ways that we can contact you, do you have a list of recommended items, like a checklist, to make sure that you have everything that you're going to need, whether you're traveling domestically or internationally?
So I will include that in the itinerary. So whenever I put together a little packet for a client, which has like all of their confirmation information, their reservations, their anything that they need for that day, each itinerary out, I'll also include like recommended lists.
And speaking of packing, I see people pack the same amount of clothes for 3 days as for 3 weeks. So, what advice would you give to someone who, is going on a vacation for whatever length of time? How much research should they do? What should they pack?
staying in like a hotel, doing laundry can be very expensive. There are also like laundromats I've seen, for example, when I went to Florence, walk around and just saw laundromats you could go to and use euros for. But I think the biggest thing is finding outfits that you can kind of mix and match, so that way you're not overpacking. I definitely made that mistake when I went on our honeymoon. I packed a large checked bag plus a carry-on plus my backpack, and by the end of the trip, you're like lugging that large checked bag through the streets of Rome or Florence, where you have all the cobblestone. Yeah, it's not ideal. So yeah, finding those outfits that you can mix and match, and just realizing like you don't need as many options as you think you do is really helpful. I know you're like, oh, well, what if I don't want to wear that day? That's the whole point of having the mixing and matching, to make it easier. If you're like, well, I don't feel like wearing that shirt, you can pivot to something else pretty easily.
Can you?
I think that's really important.
Did he ask you to call me
It
back?
is definitely easy to get carried away and pack way too much.
I've traveled with.
No,
some
it's
friends,
okay. I was just wanting
and,
to get feedback from the last one
what their
because
strategy
it's pixelated on my side, but we've tried a different
having a good plan beforehand.
Wi-Fi
And,
stream this time, so I'm hoping it's a little bit better. But the mall is horrible.
They'll shove it all into a carry-on, and periodically they'll just leave the clothes. It'll
No,
tap.
it's not. It's just
after
totally
they've worn
kicked me
them
out. That's
for
the
a
one that
certain
I'm using when
days,
it kicked me out.
they'll just leave them there, and they're just like,
So,
they're
but it's
attached to
just
them, they're
I've tried my
paired
phone, I've tried different ways, but it's not great. But
That is-
we're happy with the stream, so I'm going to keep going.
Especially
And
like
we'll
if
just,
you are the type
as
of
I
person
said
who
to
likes
Sarah,
to
if it is
shop,
pixelated
that's
and it's
a
not
great
great,
way
then
that you can
when
leave
Rebecca
something
comes up
behind
from
that
the
you're not
back to me saying
necessarily
Sarah's going to come
attached
up, I'm
to,
just going to do it for
but then
15
you're
minutes.
also out and about
put
and like see a
synopsis
great
and
dress that you
perfect,
want to
we can do
buy,
that.
and you have like kind of that mix and match and throw in something new to your wardrobe as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'm always, whenever I travel with these
Travel
things,
side.
we can travel like 3 weeks.
I'll try it again in a
It's
minute.
definitely a
just,
skill.
but I'm not
It
going to do it
is
in this
a skill
stream
for
just in
sure.
case I lose them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just want to, take a little break. We are here in Auntie Anne's in
No,
Oviedo Mall.
no.
This community
Because
Tuesday.
if we
Come join us at 12:30
no,
for our
if we
trade
deliver
adventure.
earlier,
And
that's great.
today's
So what we
Testimonial
want to do is
Tuesday is
deliver
brought to you by the East Orlando Chamber
Yep.
of Commerce.
perfect.
I just like to remind
Perfect.
everybody about
Yeah,
our networking
I did have a couple of
event
notes
coming
on
up,
mine, but
tomorrow
we can.
night,
I can just
Wednesday
use my
from
notes.
5 to 7. It's our next level real estate and trades network. It's the launch of this event.
Perfect.
So,
Okay, no, that's wonderful.
be
Really
there.
great.
It's going to be fabulous.
All right.
It's at the Rock and Brew Sleep Vista.
Okay,
You can register
awesome.
at
We'll see you when you get here.
EOCC.org,
Okay.
and it is
Right, thank
free
you.
if you pre-register. So join us tomorrow night for the launch
Will
of
do.
our
Okay.
new next
Well,
level
thank
real
you.
estate trades. Okay. Um, to so, what is the most underrated destination you have visited that everybody should know?
Oh, underrated. I think maybe Belgium. I got to do Brussels and Antwerp as I was solo traveling a couple of years ago, and Brussels is great, but I think it gets a little maybe overrated because it's the capital and everybody kind of just does their pit stop in Brussels. But Antwerp was beautiful. I felt like I could just wander through the cities or through the streets in their main area and get lost, and it was just beautiful architecture, great vibes, and it was what felt really nice about it is I didn't ever feel like I was wandering in like the touristy area. I felt like I could see that there were locals wandering around in that area as well, and so just getting to experience a local spot really, and that had such beautiful architecture and beautiful environment. That is so hard. If you had to create a travel bucket list, just 3 destinations, what would they be? So I'm gonna go with what's currently on my bucket list. I haven't gone yet, but Thailand. So like Southeast Asia, I think is a good bucket list destinations, so like Thailand, Bali, that kind of thing. Definitely Greece, doing some island hopping. I don't recommend going to Greece on a cruise personally, just because the stops are too short usually, and you don't get to enjoy the actual island, in my opinion. Whereas if you can go and do the island hopping, like through the ferries, and you get to actually experience the islands. So going that route is a little bit better. And then third for the bucket list, I'm gonna go with Norway or Iceland. That kind of vibe, the Nordic, icy. It's a unique experience.
So somebody was just showing me something yesterday. It's so cool. So people go to Iceland, to see the Northern Lights. Well, there's this thing called puffin tossing. Apparently, the puffins, are supposed to. I can't remember how they got so far into it, but at a certain point in time, they're supposed to fly away, and unless you throw them off of a cliff, they won't be fine. So there's now this new thing in Iceland, which is a tourist attraction. You can see the Northern Lights, and then you can toss a puffin off a cliff. You've never heard of that, but
I hadn't heard of that. That's amazing. I know the Northern Lights are big there. I know the waterfalls are big there, and the hiking cliffs, but I've not heard of puffin tossing. I'm gonna have to go research that now.
And especially after all the hullabaloo about the tourists in Australia who grab the wallaby.
Oh yes, yeah.
It's kind of unique to actually be able to pick up the wildlife and handle them, let alone toss them off the cliffs.
Right.
So
which seems so ironic. You want to throw an animal off a cliff, but if that's going to get them to fly south where they need to be, then that's important, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess you figured out pretty quickly whether your puppet successful or not.
I can't imagine if your puppet wasn't successful.
Oh, 3 strikes and you're out. Okay, so when you travel, what is the number one item that you travel?
A battery pack, because I'm big on taking photos, and I be able to keep your phone charged when you're using it a lot, because I think you're using it even more when you're traveling than when you're at home, and not because you're on it playing games or something, but because you're taking photos, capturing those memories, stuff like that. And so making sure that you have the battery life is something that I've found to be really important.
And speaking of pictures, I'm an amateur photographer.
Okay.
So when I go, I have my camera and all this camera equipment with me. Do you plan trips, themed trips for people? If I just want to go and take pictures, or if I just want to go, swim in every single waterfall.
Yeah.
Do you plan trips around people's hobbies? And
Yeah, definitely. I think understanding my clients and what their interests are is a big part of our first conversation. So what are you most interested in doing, pursuing? Because there's a big difference between somebody who wants to go explore the city and somebody who wants to do a lot of hiking. So definitely understanding what my clients are into and how they want to travel is a huge part of our first conversation. So I can make sure to do the research around that.
Okay. And understanding your clients also comes with understanding their budget. So how do you, how can you work with their budget? Let's say I come to you and I say, I want to go on a, around the world cruise, and I've got $5,000. So
there's a little bit of expectation setting of okay, so I actually just recently booked a cruise, a Mediterranean cruise, and all in with flights and everything, their budget was $6,000 at most. And so I was like, okay, let me do research on which cruise lines I think they would enjoy. They were traveling solo, and then also what the average price was for the flights, so that everything was, fitting within that budget. But I think setting expectations around the world cruise, $1,000. I think there's a conversation of like what can actually be achieved, and maybe recommending a location of like a Mediterranean cruise or a transatlantic cruise, that kind of thing, for that budget. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a travel hack or a tip that you swear by that you would, scream from the top of the mountains?
I don't know about scream from the top of the mountains, but I used to hate packing with packing cubes because I would roll my clothes, all your clothes get wrinkly, and then also the packing cube gets into this like funky shape that doesn't really help very much. But if you fold the clothes to the dimensions of the packing cube, then and put them in, then it actually uses the compression in the cube to fit in, and you can pack a lot more in those packing cubes. And then I like to use them where I'll pack based on the day, and my outfit that I'm planning to wear in those packing cubes. So then I only need to take out like one cube instead of all of the cubes. And then I think that helps with organization as well as how much you can pack.
Yeah, I've seen that before where they'll suggest, put day one clothes in one cube, day two in another cube, depending on what you have planned for the trip. And then, that way you don't even have to think about it. You just wake up in the morning and, pull your clothes out and
Right.
you're ready to go.
go.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so yeah, how can our viewers contact you? You want to talk a little bit about your contact information and
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Unique Travels with Sarah, all one word. But the best way to contact me is by email, which is Sarah, SARA, .Guillotte, GUILLOTTE @fora.travel. Or you can contact me via the form on my website, which is Sarah Guillotte. Again, that's GUILLOTTE.com.
Okay. And really quick, I'd like to invite everybody out today at 12:30 for our great lunch adventure here at the Oviedo Mall. We're at Auntie Anne's, Planet Smoothie, and Great American Cookie Company. So come on out and join us. And also, don't forget about our new member orientation breakfast with the Chamber. That's April 8th. It's from 8:30 to 10, and it's at Launch Entertainment. You can register at eocc.org. If you go to eocc.org, you can click on the events tab and you'll see all the great events that the Chamber has planned for the month. So come on out and see us at a coffee club. That would be great. Okay, so we have a few minutes left. Have you ever been to Antarctica, and would you like to go?
I haven't, but it is on my list. I have a friend who did an Antarctic cruise out of Argentina, and they raved about it. So that's definitely on my bucket list of things to do, which I'd probably pair with like a little hiking trip in Patagonia.
So when you're going from someplace like Florida and you want to go to Antarctica, clearly we don't have the clothes here that we need for there. Can we, rent clothes or, do like a Goodwill shopping, trip somewhere closer to the destination where they have the clothes? What would you recommend for a situation like that?
That's a great question. I've used rental companies before, kind of like Rent the Runway, which is usually more upscale stuff, but they have other options that are like day-to-day wear. So there are companies like that out there. And I have also done the Goodwill hack of going somewhere. So for example, I went to Mammoth to go skiing with friends years ago, and I didn't have ski pants. So I went to the Goodwill that was closest to the lodge, the ski lodge, and found a pair of ski pants that work, and I still have them today. So that's definitely a good hack. You can also check out sales. Like if you, for example, know you're going to Antarctica and you live in Florida, there are stores like REI. If you're going far enough in advance, they have their garage sale, which is a great sale to get like really good jackets, stuff like that. So, and they also have their gently used section, which is if somebody bought something and then it didn't work out, they returned it. It goes into that section. So you can get things that are highly discounted there.
Okay, great. And speaking of like all those big bulky items, for packing, they take up an awful lot of room in the suitcase. So, you know, if you are taking something from Florida, to one of these colder climates, would you suggest wearing it or rolling it
Yeah.
up or maybe getting a separate bag for it? How can we navigate
I
that?
typically carry my biggest jacket, just so that I have the most space in my bag. But if you really didn't want to carry it and you wanted to pack it, I definitely recommend the compression packing cubes, because there's so much extra air in those jackets, those puffy jackets, that using the compression in the cube, you can compress out all that extra air and be able to pack it with good space.
Okay. Have you ever, heard anybody, just complain about a trip that they didn't like, and if you were to book a trip for someone and they for some reason just didn't have a great time, how could you remedy that for them?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I've never had anybody complain about a trip, and I've planned many of like group trips and things like that. So I think if I had somebody complain, I would offer to refund the planning fee, just to make sure that, because I would feel terrible that I planned it and it wasn't what they were expecting. But yeah, I've never run into that situation, and I hope I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I just hear stupid stories about people who go hiking and then they're upset because it's hot and there's bugs.
Oh,
And I mean, in that situation, clearly you're not going to refund them any
Right.
money. But if somebody who, I don't know, goes to Rome and they hit all the museums after closing time or something
Right.
because they had their itinerary was all sorts of backwards, or they didn't
Right.
understand something.
I think a great example of that is, again, the expectation setting. So making
Okay.
sure that they know, hey, you're going on a hike, but it's in August. It's going to be hot. Make sure to wear lighter clothes. Here's like what I recommend, that kind of thing. Or, for example, you're going to Rome and it's Jubilee this year. There's going to be extra crowds. It's going to be a lot harder to get into things. Setting that expectation so that when they're going into it, they know what they're walking into, I think is what really helps. When working with a travel agent, you get that expertise, I guess, so that you're not walking into a situation where you have not the right expectations.
Okay. So that leads me to my last question, advantages of working with you over, booking the trip yourself.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think you get that expertise so that you have the right expectations for all the things you're going into. You get to save the time where you don't have to do all of that research, and you get a custom itinerary that's made perfectly for you, as well as there's the extra benefits of booking hotels. You get the VIP treatment. Usually there's like a welcome amenity. You are more likely to be upgraded to rooms when you book with a travel agent. Things like that, I think, are big benefits.
Okay. Because I know for a while, especially after Google, it just kind of seemed like travel agencies just faded out. Like you never really saw any anymore. So do you feel like, travel agents, are making a resurgence?
Yeah, I think people are realizing that the travel industry, when you book through Expedia or Booking.com or even through your credit card, you're getting the lowest tier, right?
Okay.
You're not going to ever be upgraded. You're not ever going to be put like on the list for late checkout, stuff like that. Whereas when you book with an agent, you're not only supporting a small business, but you're leveraging the way that the industry is built, and they know that they want to treat the clients that come through an agent with more regard so that that agent continues to send business their way. So you're bumped up kind of on the tier to be able to, you're more likely to be upgraded and get those extra perks.
So remember, if you want to travel in style, call Sarah. And please join us today at 12:30 again here at the Oviedo Mall for our great lunch adventures. We're at Auntie Anne's, Planet Smoothie, and Great American Cookie Company. And if you want to give everybody your contact information once again so that they can.
Yep, you can
Plan
contact
one of
me.
these
My
trips.
email address is Sarah, SARA .Gillott, GUILLOTTE @fora.travel. And then you can also contact me on Instagram. It's Unique Travels with Sarah.
Or if you forget all of that, you can go to eocc.org and go under the members tab, and Sarah will be listed under there with all of her contact information,
Yes.
which everybody should be on eocc.org every day just to kind of check out, the member deals, the events, hot deals. So don't forget eocc.org. And anything else? Okay. Well, Sarah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And once again, I'm Rebecca Craddock with Powell Kuiper Commercial Real Estate Services, and I'm also an ambassador with the